Welcome back to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for tuning in wherever and however you're tuning in with us today. My name is Caleb Talley. I am a startup junkie and joined by my co-hosts Jeff Amerine and Grace Gill. How's it going, guys?
Glad to be here.
Yeah,
excited.
Nice rainy day. It's not a million.
What a break,
outside.
Right?
Yeah.
What a break. We're no longer on the surface of the sun.
And hopefully, when this episode comes out, it'll just be like always, just perpetually nice and cool.
College football season forthcoming.
Oh, 15 days.
Not that you're counting.
Not that I'm counting. We're excited today to be joined by a friend of ours, Yang Luo-Branch. I've known Yang for a few years now. She is the founder and president of the Arkansas Association of Asian Businesses. I did have to write that down because I knew I'd get the order mixed up. And that is the first Arkansas Asian Chamber of Commerce for the state of Arkansas. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, we'll get into your origin story a little bit, but just want to hear from you about about the organization and what led you to start it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what our organization does is it relates or connects Arkansas and Asia in business. So it's that simple. So why I, even took the initiative 5 years ago to even found something like this is very personal, right? So I am originally from China 12 years ago. And then, stepping into the workforce personally, I felt a lot of growing I had to do as a first generation immigrant. A lot of things, I was proud of may not serve me in American culture, especially in the workplace. So, such as public speaking, such as sitting here to talk about myself, my story, is very much frowned upon in my native culture. You're supposed to not, stand out for a collective kind of reason, right? Versus individualistic culture. So since I had that struggle, I really had to learn things like public speaking, digital, marketing, things like that. I felt, hey, maybe other people with similar background would have the same kind of struggle too, things that are holding them back in this culture. So I feel maybe we need a mutual support group. Mm-hmm. And then I thought a little further, what if Arkansas entrepreneurs and business leaders go, explore other cultures, they go to, Asian cultures to set up a company. It would be the same kind of cultural adjustment. Mm-hmm. So at the time, 5 years ago, I was working at the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, and that really helps me to not only see things at individual level, but from an economic development level, what it can do to local economy in Arkansas and in Asia. So that's when I felt, hey, just let me do something for the society, for Arkansas. And then, we're very proud, even until today, this organization, like you said, is the only, we call it Chamber of Commerce. We are a 501c6 organization, or call it a business association, or just a business platform connecting Arkansas and Asia in the state of, in our state.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Follow-up question for you. How many countries are represented in the group in terms of ethnicities, original origin? Because I imagine it's pretty big at this point.
Yes. It's very big. It's, not just Eastern Asia, like, China, Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, the Philippines, Vietnam, and also, India, Russia, so on and so forth. Sure. The good thing about it is, Arkansas has lower population than many other states, right? It's manageable. Right. And actually, it's really fun. It's like a sampling plate when you go to a new restaurant. Everything comes in a little package from everywhere else. So it's a really fun group. So no particular group dominates our organization. And the really fun part is the Arkansan entrepreneurs participation. Right. So they bring back, say, Matthew Ward on your, organization. He's part of our, the AAAB's organization too. He said, eventually I want to, do something international. And my mom is from Korea. So how can I not celebrate my root? So that's the really human part, the really fun part.
And you're up to, did you say 90 members now?
We have, a lot in our network. Our policy is we talk to everybody just like you guys do, but we have over 90 paying members going from, students, individuals, small, large corporations. Yeah.
Hopefully you'll have 180 after this episode airs.
That's right. I'm counting you guys help me get there.
And to speaking to the human element and just seeing the vast array of cultures kind of coming together. Had the opportunity to go to the East Meets West event that you hosted in Little Rock earlier this year, and that was so neat to see. It was at the governor's mansion, and you had all these cultures represented, Indian, various Asian countries, but also I think there's a contingent there from Ukraine as well. It's just really interesting to see the Prince of Thailand was there.
Yes, exactly.
That was super neat. So it's definitely cool to see all of that kind of come together. And that's got to feel rewarding after 5 years of hard work of piecing it all together, I imagine.
Yes, it really is. What's really personally rewarding is I have a master's in sociology. Okay. My sociology professor always said, if you see the society as an experiment, it's like chemistry experiment. You just need to put things together and see how it reacts to each other. So at the back of my mind, I'm always thinking in this element. It's very personally rewarding to see when you just create a platform, people come, they invite others. And, from me personally, I couldn't reach, the delegation from Ukraine right when the war broke, and then the royal family from Thailand, they were all brought by somebody else. So I was very excited to see that experiment react.
Well, give us a little bit of the origin story, because I know in addition to everything else, you're also a fantastic artist. And tell us a little more about you.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. Actually, how Caleb and I got to know each other was because I was illustrating for the magazine that he was working for multiple times. One is my life attitude. It's, we have an analogy in our culture. We use chopsticks to eat everything, right? The rice, the noodles, the soup, whatever. We just have this mindset of holistic. It's just about problem solving, right? Using a chopsticks to eat, a pair of chopsticks eat everything versus using different shapes of knives, utensils, right? Very much, specialized. So that's how I approach things in life too. I feel doing arts, doing nonprofit, doing data analytics at Tyson, which is the company I work for. To me, it's just approaching life, solving lives, whatever needs to be solved. And if I can play a role in this whole context, I feel I'm pretty lucky. So in terms of the training, so I got, I enjoy art and I want to be an artist, and I feel art plays great role in our society. I was trained as an architect and urban planner, and I went through very rigorous, hand rendering phase for several years. So I want to retain that kind of, technical skills of hand drawing. That's why I feel there's still a place for fine art with hand drawing in this world, in the era of digitalization.
That's great.
And we use a I guess a phrase or a comparison at Startup Junkie. We look for people that are, we call it Swiss Army knives. They're able to kind of fill a need, jump on a task, be able to wear a bunch of different hats. So I guess we could also compare that to a chopstick. It also does all of the tasks.
Yes,
so we can use it to a whole drawer of dishes. This kind of has the same thing there. What's on the horizon for the organization as far as facilitating those relationships between Arkansas and Asian businesses? What are you seeing? What trends are you seeing, and what do you think might come in the future?
Yeah. Well, being part of the conversation like this is definitely we want to do more on. So, we within the organization, we have, some strategic planning movements. One is we were set up as a 501c6 organization, and it has been very difficult to get funding. And so far, we haven't gotten any grants, at all. As an organization, we want to scale. We want to start having employees, but how to get funded for that. We feel the C3 setup would really facilitate that. So we are pursuing adding a foundation to our organization, and we're going through a law firm to help get that done. And then speaking of scaling, right? The first 5 years we feel it's just, setting up something, getting started on somewhere, right? But so our board feel that the next phase is about scaling strategically, like where to get the funding, how to do more systematic membership benefit, things like that. So we are having our first board retreat on September 16th coming up. So we're really excited. I'm really excited what to come out of that. And then it's a piece of really leveraging what Arkansas has to offer in terms of helping ourselves, which is, I think by the time this podcast is released, this news will be released too. We're selected by the Clinton School as a, practicum partner, which means, their students, the Clinton School students will work with us for a year to do the research we need their help on, such as a community survey, like what is say a persona of the Arkansas Asia business community, what are the needs, how can we best serve that? So, the first 5 years is more out of, let's try it, my experiment, personal pleasure, but the next 5 to 10 years is really about being more strategic, being more, structured, and bring on more and other, leadership. And then it's the, like I said, being part of conversations like this, especially in Northwest Arkansas. There's so many interested parties in just building a more diverse, inclusive, community, and then how we can be part of that and contribute to that.
As you continue to scale, how involved is the whole state in what you guys are doing now? Like, are you still really kind of central in Northwest Arkansas? Are you looking to kind of deepen those roots there, or continue to kind of bring in the entire state? How far have you reached throughout Arkansas?
Yeah. Great question there. So the short answer is the entire Arkansas and the entire Asia. We are ambitious. So one is, I just don't think there's a reason to close it down. We were set up as, a statewide and all Asia. It's manageable now, and our board members are across the state. And then, we, the birthplace of the organization was in the capital city of our state. So I feel, working with the government, working with, private practices, and the short answer again is the whole state. And then, we have, members write into us like long paragraphs telling their stories from East Arkansas, from South Arkansas, from North Arkansas, definitely outside of these, population, density areas, they just feel passionate about, hey, there's something like this existing in Arkansas, and they care about us in South Arkansas too. Yeah.
And I think Arkansas is unique. And of course, we've got these centers of population in Northwest Arkansas and Central Arkansas and the enterprises that both offer. But I think we've seen over the past several years the investment of, Asian companies in some of these more rural regions, whether those be textile factories or lumber opportunities, things like that. That's kind of shown that there are opportunities for both Arkansas and an Asian based company to really do business outside of just one of the big three in Northwest Arkansas or that sort of thing.
Yes, that's exactly right. We're such a rural state with, agriculture as our main industry, right? So a lot like the rice export, where does it export to, right? It's Asia. And who are the big Asian rice eaters? Asia. So there's a lot of reason to care about, everywhere in Arkansas.
As it relates to that import-export aspect, do you work closely with the World Trade Center or with the U.S. Department of Commerce, the commercial service? Are there good ties there?
We do have good ties there. So a former World Trade Center employee, Boon Tan, senior director. He was on our board, the AAB board, and we're in great relationship with Miss Denise Thomas, who's the CEO of the World Trade Center. It's always just a telephone call away.
Sure.
Yeah. And, last year we were both on this really wonderful meeting where I performed as a translator, where, Arkansas and my home province in China, Henan province, their sister state province.
Right.
And then, Denise was on there, AEDC representatives are on there who are my former coworkers, and I was on there representing our organization, plus being someone from both sides.
Sure.
And speaking both languages and can translate. So I think and also the Agriculture Council, Arkansas Export District Council. So yes, we are in conversation, good relationship with all of them. And that's what I mean by scaling up. Then we can actually do something more concrete, like leading delegations to visit Asian countries, giving a tour, things like that. So right now we're not able to do that.
Keep up to date on the latest news and economic development with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission's Arkansas Inc. newsletter. Each month, get the Arkansas Inc. newsletter, which spotlights the latest project wins and developments throughout the state, delivered to your email. The newsletter features major project announcements, company expansions and relocations, news articles, rankings, and more that highlight why Arkansas is a great state to do business. The newsletter is a snapshot of what AEDC has been working on and what we are following. The quarterly Tech Trends newsletter highlights the latest news in Arkansas's growing tech sector. You can learn about new Arkansas tech companies, computer science and cybersecurity initiatives, funding and venture capital announcements, and even more. AEDC offers 4 quarterly newsletters: the Food and Beverage Industry Digest, Aerospace and Defense Beacon, Timber Trends, and Tech Trends. To learn more or sign up for a newsletter, visit arkansasedc.com/news.
Well, I think there's such an opportunity too. I mean, you'd mentioned it beforehand. We were in kind of the podcast application, the little form about being kind of a global citizen, but being a global citizen from Northwest Arkansas. Tell me a little bit about what that means to you, being in a place like Northwest Arkansas, and how it translates to being a global citizen.
I think global citizen, it may sound fancy, it sounds like a big word, but to me, it's really just making the best of living wherever you are, wherever you find your place on this earth. That's just about participating life wherever in the world. That's my definition of it. So today I find myself in Northwest Arkansas, with my husband and my daughter here, and all my family is still in China. So what do? I need to participate live in Northwest Arkansas. And I feel probably many residents in this area share that same kind of attitude, no matter they're local or from other parts of the world, which there are a lot, right? I think my message would be, hey, let's all come out and let's give back, and we can all bring something to the community and make the most of it for ourselves too.
How's the reception been? One of the things that we're sensitive to is this idea of making sure there's a sense of belonging. Have you felt like there's been a good reception in Northwest Arkansas? Have people been eager to try to be helpful and congenial and all that?
Yeah. That's a really good question. And I think it should be more talked about when we talk about inclusion and sense of belonging, right? Speaking sense of belonging, that was a sociology terminology, right? When I was back in school, when this whole thing wasn't even popular
right.
some time ago. So I think it takes two parts. It takes two parties, right? The individual or the outcomers or immigrants themselves and the hosting community, right? So I feel, the community is wonderful and they want to help, right? And I feel, it's like anywhere else in America, say many people like immigrants like myself coming from another culture, maybe operating a nail salon. They have very limited language skills.
Sure.
Okay. I have very good friends who are great, successful, entrepreneurs, but they don't speak English. Right. So when that happens, there's just so much you can do. Right.
Sure.
So, I really have empathy for those folks. Because imagine, totally just picture that we have, Asian grocery store operators may have several, locations, but outside of that, they don't speak English, period. Everything they need in life is taken care of by someone. The attorney, the tax, the accountants, the everything. Kids go to school, they can't communicate with the teachers, right? But they want to stay here. So I feel, because I see them, how much do they feel belong here? Maybe not so much, other than, making a living here. But outside of that, they're very deprived of social life.
Sure.
But don't feel sorry for them. They have, tight-knit connections, only speak Chinese, and they're in New York City, they're in Florida. So it's a totally different dynamic.
Sure.
Yeah. So they have a way of handling life in America that's not widely perceived or understood by people, by outsiders like you folks. I don't mean to offend.
No.
Right. So I feel, if I can help them to create a channel out to connect their little enclave or bubble with the rest of the community who's so willing to help. Yeah. If I can be that channel, I'm willing to.
Yeah, and follow up on that. So what you described is not unusual for the first generation. What's the case for the second generation, where they have grown up in the schools here? They're typically going to be bilingual in most cases, right? Yes. So that level of assimilation or bilingualism or more incorporation, the second generation is where that happens a lot of times.
Exactly.
Right?
That's where the channels all open up. Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Interesting. It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
And we're talking specifically about the Asian immigrants who are here, but the same could be said of the Germans, the Italians, French, anybody else that came here, that first generation was difficult, right?
Yes.
A lot of them wouldn't have picked up the skills because they came here at a point in their life where it's just harder to learn the language. But the second generation, third, hopefully they even maintain some of that cultural connection in both languages.
Yes.
But that's where it tends to happen, it seems like.
Yes. And
It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, same for Americans if they work overseas.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I feel the human element of, just global citizens. All
And
that.
I think it becomes, and like has become almost ingrained into the DNA of America, those immigrants that came over, that first generation. It's difficult, but there was this kind of thread of entrepreneurship and resiliency that was required to succeed. And the same could be said for Asian immigrants, Latin American immigrants that are coming to the U.S. You almost have to have some level of resiliency to be able to persevere and then kind of grind it out with an entrepreneurial activity. And that has become generationally a part of the American story of these folks coming here and doing that thing. And so you're shepherding kind of the next generation of that. Yeah, it seems like.
Yep. That's why I feel, although our organization is more, in the name called Arkansas Association of Asian Businesses, but we all have immigrants somewhere in our, family line.
Yeah, it's true.
That's Irish and the red beard.
And the green.
Yeah. So what challenges do you anticipate moving forward? We all know about, the various geopolitical concerns globally. What challenges do you think are presented to your organization that you anticipate like having to navigate moving forward?
Well, that's really good question. I'm glad you asked that, right? It's very timely. I have, I'm from China. US-China relationship is like the worst in the modern history. And, I've been, when Chinese delegation come, they contact us to facilitate dinners and meetings. And, on the other side, the American society is, curious, what are they going to do? Things like that. So, personally, I feel there should be more talks about people-to-people connection, community-to-community connections. The geopolitical things, I can see why, on an intellectual level, but I think we're missing out if we just stop talking to each other, if we just stop socializing, because the big guys are not playing along very well. So with that, I feel it's not so much obstacle. It's just, challenging us to be more as grassroots leaders, to be more thoughtful, to be more creative, and then still add value versus just shy away from it altogether. And, our organization is not about China and the U.S. It's about Arkansas and Asia. So we have plenty of room to play with in the meantime.
And there's have been for the past few years kind of talks about just kind of like almost isolationism and kind of closing, siloing in regards to relationships with various other countries and that sort of thing. But we talk about the back and forth, the need to export rice, the need to exchange goods. And it's just like, we live in a global economy. You can't exactly just shut the door entirely. So it's important to kind of find some sort of middle ground. If the big guys are fighting, the ones on the ground that are actually like having those conversations can be a minimal, then there's opportunity.
Yes. And I think I do see that. I see that, and I see that in your in the Fuel Accelerator kickoff meeting, and I know you guys are well underway on that. And really, kudos to you guys on making it a global effort. So, like you said very well, we just need to do our part.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're committed to building ties to Asia Pacific. We've got the Arkansas Korea Alliance, which is the Korea testbed program, and Louis Diesel actually is in Seoul, and we're trying to do similar things in Singapore as well.
Nice.
And it's, my background prior to Startup Junkie was international business. I love that cultural connections and trying to build bridges between locations. And you try to do that against a common set of values where you can count on.
Yes.
There's a level of certainty and there's an understanding about how things will get done and how to partner and whatnot. And, the one point that you made about it's difficult when if you're from any other culture and you try to do business in America and you don't have the English skills, you have to have a partner or a channel to be able to help you. It's the very same thing for us. We wouldn't be able to do what we're doing in Korea if we didn't have someone like Louis Diesel, whose mother's Korean and he's fluent and he understands the culture. It's not possible to do it unless you have trusted partners. So the function that you're performing in coalescing this association is really incredibly helpful because you need to have people that understand both. That can be the bridge between those if you really want to try to do good business.
Absolutely. And then, a really energizing part of our organization is the expats coming to join the organization, and because they see the value of the liaison or the know-how in both cultures, if they want to contribute back or advocate this kind of cultural linkage, they came to our organization.
Right.
Yeah. So we have executives that have worked, in Korea, in Japan for over a decade or two. The first thing they come back to Arkansas, they're Arkansans.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were executives. They run pharmaceutical companies or manufacturing companies. And the first thing they retire back to Arkansas is to see where they can give back to. So they came to our organization doing, advertising their new consulting gig on this international business. So we love that.
Now that you've been at this 5 years, and as you think about doing the foundation as well, do you have tangible outcomes where you can say, were it not for our association, these business connections wouldn't have occurred? Have you seen that kind of magic happen between people?
Yes. Every time after every event. When I say event, it's not like taking it loosely, but every connection starts with a conversation, right? So I just see people get connected on LinkedIn, due to our event, or people write, thank you notes to us and say, hey, we've carried on the relationship after your initial introduction. So things like that. Absolutely.
Pretty gratifying when you can see those connections actually work.
Yes.
That's
yes.
great.
It makes it all worth it.
Turn. I guess kind of going back to what we were talking about creating that community where you have like a whole organization of people who represent both, because there is that global economy that exists. There's tons of people who understand both sides of that, and specifically Arkansas and Asia, but really in any. Do you think with what you're doing with your organization, bringing those people, having that representation is opening up new opportunities that wouldn't have really existed otherwise? Like what kind of opportunities has that helped expand for Arkansas and for Asia?
Yeah. Very good question. I need to think on that for a second, but really good question. Yeah.
I knew you had one more good one in you.
So it's one is other than the you stalk people on LinkedIn and other things. There are many things. It's hard to track, but I'm certain it went somewhere.
Of course.
Yeah. So one thing I can just highlight because it happened to me, so I know for sure, is when after that meeting I mentioned last year between Arkansas and the Henan province, this talking about economic development synergy, and then me and the Henan province foreign affairs office continued to be in talk, and I let them know, hey, aviation, mountain biking is great in Northwest Arkansas, so on and so forth. Just keep that conversation going. And then when it came to just the New Year celebration, one day, New Year, meaning the New Year's Eve, December 31st, not the Lunar New Year. But I got a call, and they said, from this office, Henan Foreign Affairs Office, they said, can you go to New York City for us at the countdown ceremony, the New Year's countdown ceremony, to represent Arkansas? And I did. I because that was during COVID, that was U.S. China are not playing well, and they've called many places. I was on their list, but I wasn't first on their list to call. But everybody declined to represent that relationship on the Times Square. So the reason why the Times Square even come into play is every year. So there is a spotlight moment, say 30 minutes about a province or an industry in China being highlighted on the Times Square during this countdown time as an advertisement of maybe there are other countries buying time during that slot too. So they needed someone to really be there and represent this relationship between Arkansas and Asia. They called me, and I went. And that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't in the conversation. Right. And they couldn't come. The Henan province people couldn't come because it was during COVID. It's 2021. And even the Times Square was very, sparse with, not many people there, but I was one of the ones there.
Was it freezing cold?
It was durable.
Okay. Because sometimes you see those shots and it's like, oh my goodness, it's freezing.
They're all drinking their whiskey too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That might have been a better time to go without lots and lots and lots of people.
Yes, it was. I had to do several COVID tests.
I bet.
Yeah, all of that. But it was, it's hard to track other people's, follow-ups, but I know what happened to me.
Well, that's just really cool that, your organization can hold the responsibility of not only representing, but also, just maintaining the relationship.
Yes.
Because that is kind of abstract. So to, to be able to have that responsibility and own it is really cool.
Yep.
It's also got to be pretty rewarding too, and to have that opportunity to be asked. Like that's got to feel
That's
good.
cool.
Right?
Yes. And at the New Year's countdown, I've always wanted to go there. So it served another purpose too.
That's awesome. Well, one of the ways we like to land the plane and kind of wrap things up on the podcast is to ask our guests to go back in time. You have a time machine, go back, whether that's 5 years ago before the launch of the organization, or even further, 12 years ago when you were first coming to the U.S., or even further. And you had the opportunity to give your younger self advice, knowing everything that you know now, all the accumulated knowledge. What advice might you give yourself?
I'd say just keep going.
That's good advice.
Don't give up and keep going.
Yeah. It gets lonely sometimes as, you guys start things and all your entrepreneurs, and it's a lot of times you just need to keep going.
It's a road only you can walk. Really.
Yes. Especially you're picking one that's not so popular.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being a bridge builder and creating something that wasn't here before. That's going to lead to common understanding and more opportunity for entrepreneurs on both sides. It makes a difference.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Where can our listeners find out more about the organization?
Yes. So our website is ARKASANBIZ, stands for ARKAsianbiz.com. And then I would suggest to sign up for our newsletter, and that's where you are going to stay in touch with us.
Awesome. And we'll include that in the show notes as well. Congratulations on 5 years.
Oh, thank you, Caleb.
And
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for joining
thank
us.
you.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.